Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 9 in the book of Philippians. I'm going to call today Ant Rescue, and I'm going to try to explain one of the greatest theological concepts that we have before us by a story about some ants. I'll get to that in a second. So Paul has said in chapter 2 that you guys are in my bowels. You Philippians are in my bowels. That is, I carry you in my heart. And then he asks them to do some very difficult things. He says to the Philippians, be of the same mind with the people around you. Set your minds like them. Consider them more significant than yourself. Love them in this way. Be humble. Well, these are like impossible, really high level tasks. Well, how are you going to do this? And then he answers it a little bit in Philippians chapter 2, verse 5. He says, have this mind among yourselves, which is in Christ Jesus. And then he goes on. We read that yesterday. Here's the new part. Who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but he made himself nothing, taking on the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he emptied himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. So I've been saying that Philippians is a book about setting your mind, and it is a book about setting your mind like the mind of Christ. So today we're going to have this revelation of who Christ is in a very special way. So there's this equality of the persons of this Trinity. If you wrote this as a math equation with regards to value, the Father equals the Son in value, equals the Spirit in value. Now, they have different roles, different authority, a different authority structure. They have different times of prominence. They have like eras. And so we find about Jesus. So what about Jesus? We say that he was in the form of God. That is, he was a true God. He had the exact nature, all the characteristics. It's a shorthand for saying Jesus was God. Don't believe for a second that, quote unquote, Jesus is just a good teacher or he is the Son of God in some sort of a junior or beta or pejorative kind of a way. No, what this says is he has the equality of other members of the Trinity, and he lays it aside in a certain sense to come on a rescue mission. So here's the story. So imagine these ants, and they build their anthill right in the middle of a sidewalk. A human being, this higher creature, walks by and says, hey, and starts yelling at the ants, you guys are a bunch of knuckleheads. Don't build your anthill in the middle of the sidewalk. You're going to get destroyed. This is a certain path of destruction for you guys. And he keeps shouting to them in English, let's just say, and he doesn't speak ant. And he day by day goes by, and he gets frustrated that these ants are not changing and not obeying him. He says, well, how am I going to communicate with these ants that they shouldn't build their anthill right in the middle of the sidewalk? So as the story goes, the guy becomes an ant, goes down and tells them and rescues the ants by becoming an ant. So I know it's a silly story, but it helps, I think, with this particular picture. So this is where we're going to get the ant rescue, and Jesus is going to become an ant for us. Okay. So he does not count this attribute something to hold on to, something to grasp, to grasp. So ironically, Jesus should be exalted and worshiped for this action of laying aside. And so why does he do this? Well, the ants are going to need some help. People are going to need some help. So he comes down from heaven, doesn't grasp the honor and that being God, fully God, requires. He comes down, and how does he come down? Does he come down to riches? Does he come down to power? Does he come down to being a king or emperor of the world? No, he comes to some geographical backwater called Israel. Comes to an unwed mother, to poverty, to a life of work, to hardship, to human friendship and human love. But that's also marked by betrayal, just like your interactions with other humans. So verse 7, he makes himself nothing as a servant. The Greek word is kino or kenosis. He emptied himself. He pours himself out. This emptying consisted, the ESV commentary says that the emptying consisted in him becoming human, not in him giving up any part of his true deity. We'll leave that particular question to the theologians. But what we do know is he comes. He is born. Any of you ever give birth? Have any of you actually been born? Any of you listeners? Of course. And so comparatively, he comes to this. He's born this way. Compared to where he was 1 second before in the glory of heaven and in the majesty and with all powers being displayed and all knowing, he lets certain things go, at least enough to squeeze into humanity. So he is found in human form, not by accident. He does this by intent, by decision. He humbles himself. And how far down does he go? Does he come to humanity? Yes. Does he come to hunger? Yes. To poverty? Yes. To death? Yes. All the indignities of being a human, even death on a cross. So he comes from equality with the Trinity all the way down to being human and being humbled in going to death. And why? So let's not lose this. Why does he come? Why does he do this? Why does he kenos himself? He does this to come and get you. He empties himself. He lets some things go for a time, his glory, his position, his geography. Why? To go on a rescue mission, to come for Mr. Ant, to come for Mrs. Ants. His love for you compels him to come all this way down to humanity, down to servanthood, down to death, down to crucifixion. Why the humanity? Why the humility? Why the humiliation of death and crucifixion? Because he does it to come get you. And let's allow him. Let's give him the respect. Let's allow him to come and rescue us. Let's allow him to change our minds. Let's allow him to change our behavior. Let's allow him to change our decisions. If you haven't received him, do it today. If you have, then let's allow his rescue. Thank you for listening. You ants.